Welcome to another episode of Tres Leches Radio, representing 1/3 of the trio. Yours truly, Rad Soul. Gentlemen, what up?
Yo, we here, man. The Essence of AZ. What up, people?
Well, yeah, you know what it is. Illmatic the God, and we're gonna get pieces to one of the gods right now, Mr. A to the Z.
All right. Well, before we get into that, as always, if you're watching this video, you've already found our YouTube channel at Tres Leches Radio. You can find us everywhere else on social media at Tres Leches Radio. You can also stream this on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Music. And with that said, I want you guys to follow me on this one a little bit. I took my time with this intro. So today's topic of focus centers around the pieces of a man whose career, spanning over 20 years, has had what one might call 9 lives. Between his own body of work and legendary collaborative efforts with the likes of Nas, Dr. Dre, Common, D'Angelo, Wu-Tang, Little Brother, West Side Gun, Doo, Pete Rock, and DJ Premier, just to name a few, he has always given the game an undeniable flow. The format to his genius has always been rooted in the smoothest of deliveries. He told us in 95 and is reminding us now in 2021, it's do or die. And I know he still meant it when he decided to charge $50 for the CD of his latest album. I'm mad, okay? $75 for the autograph version. Yeah, I thought he went AWOL, excuse me, but the Asiatic one is back. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the man of the hour, AZ. Let's give a round of applause. One of the episodes.
Beautiful intro.
There we go.
That was tight.
There we go. Yeah, I tried. So yeah, nothing too crazy on the background here. AZ, born Anthony Cruz, half black, half Dominican, repping East New York by way of Brooklyn, is a legend who has literally sat at tables with Biggie, Jay-Z, and Nas. And this includes being at tables with Jay and Nas as recent as a few years ago for Nas's birthday. Sosa is acknowledged by the elite. The younger generation may not know AZ's name like they do other GOATs, but those other GOATs know and respect Sosa. Even 50 Cent, at the height of his career, name-dropped AZ in a song as a diss, when 50 usually aimed for larger targets. Again, the biggest names know AZ. So with that said, I'll just throw this out for the chat. When did you guys first hear of AZ?
I guess I'll start. I mean, other than the obvious Sugar Hill, that was like the first big single that was on the like public radio. I want to say I caught him on the Source magazine. He was on the what was it called? Too Hype or the next?
The next up.
It was a segment of like the next up artists.
Yeah, they had a couple of those. Yeah.
And I was too young to buy Illmatic. I didn't get Illmatic until like 95 or something like that. Maybe like 96. But he was already, high up on there as far as like anticipated artists. Obviously, Life's a Bitch and all of that. But coming into Do or Die, because he was really like, he didn't do a lot. Like it was like Illmatic album.
Yeah, I don't think he has. It's not like today where like a lot of artists will have mixtapes before their album. It was just, the Illmatic. Off the top of my head, I don't know. Like, how Nas had like Live at the Barbecue and stuff like that. Yeah. I don't know if AZ off the top of my head has something before Life's a Bitch like that.
I mean, he was straight to the league.
He literally got signed off the strength of his verse on Life Was a Bitch, and he talked about it, I think, in his autobiography book, he literally just got signed. It was no mixtape. It was no other thing. That was it. You're like, oh, we heard this, we want you, type deal.
Yeah. He was straight to the league with it. Like,
Yeah, I mean? Right. He went from high school, right? Yeah.
But yeah, musically, I mean, the first song I gotta say is Sugar Hill for me.
Yeah, I remember my older brother, like back in the 90s. This is how we're gonna be showing our age. He used to record music videos to VHS. You know what I'm saying? So we had the VCR sitting on top of the TV, and Sugar Hill was one of those videos, that and Do or Die. So, he used to record that. That was like, AZ was brought into me because of my older brother. He had Do or Die. So like, different songs, right? Like I couldn't, unless I could get money and like record the albums to cassette, like I didn't hear the whole album in its entirety in 95, minus whatever my brother was playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how he was brought onto my radar in 95. And pretty much every year that he dropped, like he went 95 and like 90, as far as solo albums, he stayed on my radar. After a while, it wasn't just that, oh, my older brother got the CD, let me check it out. Like he put me onto AZ to the point where, we're still checking for him in 2021 to the point that we're doing an episode for him. You know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm. Unsigned Hype was the segment.
Unsigned Hype.
Which he didn't stay unsigned long.
No, not really.
By the time that article went to print, he was probably
already inked up.
Exactly.
EMI, what up? But yeah, an impression I had of AZ, I got to mention this. So he was on, he might have not made the whole cover, but he was like second billing on Source Magazine in 97. And he had a orange, like Mets, New York Mets flight jacket. I don't know if y'all remember those like the puffy baseball jackets.
Yeah.
That was hot back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And he's on he always got the fresh fade, fresh haircut. I remember the New York season with the waves at the park, the half moon. I never forget.
I'm
so
a
my
full
room
moon now. So
I'm getting there, man. I'm on a Kobe. I'm right there.
I can't relate.
But in middle school, high school, my wall was just filled with like art and hip hop pictures. Like you couldn't see the white paint on my wall. I just had it filled with stuff. And I remember cutting out the AZ picture of him in the Mets jacket and the haircut. And I brought it to my barber. I didn't know what the language I got. This is why Val would have been a good one on this one because she's a hairstylist. I'm like, I didn't know what the haircut. I didn't know what this was called. And I just cut it out the page and real talk, I gave it to my barber and I was like, I want to look like this.
Make me SOSA.
Yeah. He's like, all right. So I just never had that much of an energy connected to a rapper where I wanted to literally look like them. Like I loved like Redman, Tupac, Nas, but I didn't really want to like be like them per se. Like AZ was a dude. I was like, yo, that's it.
Yeah.
He was debonair in his raps, and then like with his style too. Like he walked it like he talked it. Like
for sure. My introduction to AZ is kind of I won't say weird, but I think maybe because of my upbringing, because growing with my grandparents, it was hard enough for me to have hip hop playing in my room. Because of the curses and everything, keep something low. So during that time era, like with Do or Die, like I kind of knew a little bit of AZ because of Nas. That's from friends that might already had the album from Illmatic, but like I didn't really get exposed to more and more AZ. Actually, to about around time the Firm came out when I heard more of him. Because during that time I was also more heavier, in Bone Thugs. Obviously, at that point. But I remember hearing Firm Fiasco, and especially Phone Tap. I'm like, oh. And it kind of reduced me because I kind of forgot about him. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, this dude's nice. And then I kind of had that gap because I didn't really listen to Do or Die when it initially came out. So I, got older, was able to buy CDs, stuff and so forth. But then I was able to circle back. You know what I mean? And it's here. And the one thing that always stood up on me was like, and I think we talked about it before in previous, discussions. We got rappers who, rap and you could tell they rap, and you got others who just do it effortlessly. Like, it's just like water. And AZ flows just like water. Like he doesn't, like even if he tries, it doesn't sound like he's trying. You know what I mean? It's almost like I was born like that. I woke up like this, flowing. You know what I mean? And that was one thing I always, saw, and this like, man, that this delivery, even up until this day, like it's so crisp. Like you hear it and you're like, man, where other like guys, even during his age group, his peers, where they kind of, okay, we can kind of hear him aging now in their raps. You can't really hear that with AZ.
He's mastered
what I mean?
Pocket. Yeah, he's just he find like whatever the beat, whatever the BPMs, he just goes into the pocket with such finesse. And even on 2021, the finesse is top tier even now. I don't think I've ever heard him like sound bad on, even if I didn't like a beat. I don't think I've ever heard him sound bad on a track.
Exactly.
This is 20 plus years. Like,
and even though this is maybe a bad comparison, but I think more so because of like their the smoothness. He kind of reminded me of the way Snoop when he first came. Cause he was, smooth. Like he might have been rapping on hardcore beats, but he was just so smooth with it. And that's how AZ was. Like could be the hardest beat, whatever. Everybody else might be like, and he just comes in with his own finesse to it. Like everybody might be trying to do that dunk. He's going with that finger roll. You know what I mean? He wants you to see the elegance of the game. That he's spitting, and that's one thing that always resonated with me. About that.
So let me ask you guys this, right? So he debuted in '95 with Do or Die. Solo album wise, this is off the top. I don't have a list in front of me. Best album in '95?
You can make the argument. Looking back at it now, I mean, it was last like remember East 99 Eternal was out.
Well, that's why I said solo, right? Because I know when I know that Eternal came out, and I'm like, I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Yeah, like. Because I know Tupac also Me Against the World, I think, came out that year when 95. Was Raekwon 95? Cuban Links?
Yeah, that was out.
I would still put Do or Die over Cuban Links, and I know like a lot of people. I would because I prefer AZ to Raekwon.
I wouldn't argue it. Yeah, I mean I know how you feel about Raekwon, and I know how Josh feels about Raekwon, but that's for another story. Josh would have been good for this episode too. But yeah.
Definitely top 5 in '95.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Mobb Deep, Infamous.
Well, that's why I said solo.
Solo.
I don't think it's fair to put like a solo act against like a duo or a group. You know what I mean?
In that case, it's right. It's Raekwon and Tupac are the only ones boxing with that question.
Yeah,
and those are definitely legends.
Yeah. I forgot that. I was like 95. I was like, he has some stiff competition there. So well, let me ask you this. Do you guys think that there's like catalog wise with him, is there a difference between his output when he was on a major versus when he went independent?
Not really, no, because I think he to me personally, I think he always stayed in his lane. He stepped for the most part his formula. Like he didn't try to go too far left, he didn't go too far right. He might dibble and dabble, but not to the point where you say like, oh man, he just doing this for whatever reason. I think he kind of knew his niche, from the get-go as far as what lane he wanted to say, what audience he was trying to, attract. So I can't really say he ever really forced anything. And I think, and we look at his overall catalog, it kind of speaks on that.
See, go ahead, B-Sex.
Yeah, AZ, I think his major output was slightly, I would say slightly declined as far as like pace. And I think when he went to independent, I think you see a little tad bit more. I mean, you can tell like after an artist is out for like 7 to 10 years, you could tell like what's their pace versus the business pace. So he wrote his stream, like, he wrote his wave very well, but to answer your question, I think on the majors, a little bit less input.
So I'm going to go opposite there. I'm going to go opposite there just because we're in that moment. I think so. And for anyone listening, like his major label albums are Do or Die, Pieces of a Man, Asiatic, and 9 Lives. Right? Just those solo albums. And then his indie albums that he actually, based on the back of his book, he only acknowledges as his independent albums. AWOL, Format, Undeniable. He did the weird 15-year release thing, which kind of confused me a little bit. And then now Do or Die 2. So I actually think I think his mainstream stuff. Well, I don't want to say mainstream in that regard. I mean, when he was on a major label, I think was a tad stronger because when he first went independent, AWOL had some missteps for me. I think like there's been times on different AZ albums, you know how like Busta Rhymes every now and then will force a track in there. He's done that at times, and like for me, AWOL and Undeniable. Again, there's music on those albums that I love. But that's like my reasoning for the other way around. I think there's a little bit more like the budget clearly wasn't the same on an independent label. However, Format I think is incredible. And I know we have time dedicated for Do or Die 2 is another great release. That's just how I see it. Renzo, what were you going to say before?
No, it's funny. Well, 2 things. I would say, it's like I was listening to Pieces of Man while doing some cardio earlier. That album, I think part of that was because of the firm, era where I think we was trying to do more, a little bit more commercial music. That
yeah, you could tell. Yeah, that Hey AZ was gonna be the lead single. Yeah,
yeah. But it's funny you mentioned AWOL because honestly that's one of my favorite albums from AZ.
Yeah,
but yeah, and I know we kind of talked about that here and there. Because I just felt like and we'll talk about that a little bit towards the end. But I thought he was in a good pocket, at that point. Because to me, that's when I think he figured, okay, here's where I'm going at. Because personally, and we'll go in later. I thought AWOL was probably, I like that better than the Format album.
Really? Wow. Yeah. See, I'm the other way around. I think like AWOL for me, there was some question. That was the first time in AZ's career where he picked certain beats, and I'm like, because I have no complaints on him. I could sit here and be like, his flow was never a problem. His bars were never a problem. He sticks to a certain, hustler, like knowledge, luxuriousness, the women, like he does it well every time. So like my only thing was like beats on that. But I would say, well, let me get all right, you know what?
Asiatic too, man. That was a beast.
I love Asiatic. And we got something to I'll put some time to the side for that one. Because you guys did answer my main question. Let me see here.
But we're talking about knowledge real quick. I just want to interject right here. In case y'all didn't know about this autobiography.
And the picture.
Jewels, gems, and treasures. Personally signed by the God himself. One Love, Lorenzo, AZ. Humble dude.
I couldn't be there. I don't know what I was doing, but I will never forgive myself. But
well, it was a work day.
Tell us how
you couldn't even come back. We mentioned, it was a work day. This was like a random day. Like honestly, I don't think me and Brandon knew to the day of or the day it was happening because our homie Armand had hit us up. Because we knew about the book, but we didn't know about him doing actual book signing.
Right.
So that was actually in Philly downtown. I can't remember the name of the book, but it was a Black-owned bookstore.
Black and Noble.
Black and Noble, okay. And AZ such
Black and Noble, that's brilliant. Instead of Barnes and Nobles, Black and Noble. Go ahead. That's brilliant. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and we know, especially more because me and Brandon are more in the Philly scene versus you're more, Jersey, New York, obviously. Like AZ was such an enigma. Like you hardly saw him in Philly, or whether it was show or anything. Brandon will attest that he saw him randomly at this little bar one night that's doing a couple songs. But like I remember we talked to him. Brief talk, but we're like, yo, you gotta come to Philly. You gotta do some shows for like Philly loves you because he was big up in Black Thought and everything. He's like, oh, y'all gotta hit up the promoter. I'm like, listen, I'm not the promoter. I'm just a fan of you. You just gotta make it happen. And it's just one of them things where like how the universe works, because within a year he does two shows.
Went to that. Yeah,
does two shows. One that he headlined, and another one he did co-headline with Cool G Rap.
Yeah, I think that that event definitely led to him coming to Philly because at that point, AZ was not coming to Philly and I did not know about it. So I'm going to say that we had some influence, and we probably weren't the only people telling him that night.
Sure.
Maybe
enough of you guys said it. Yeah, that book is definitely. Let me ask you this, and Brandon, I think you've read more. I feel like the hip hop books than I have. His book, would you say one of the better hip hop autobiographies, or like somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I was waiting for for him to get to a little more juice. But it's good for what it is, man. It's a nice like coffee table read. It's like a book where you can like read it for like a year. Like you can read 5 pages every 5 days and then put it down. You can pick up page 60. You don't have to go in order, so it has a nice flow. And I'm not now that I'm thinking that's probably more of what he was going for instead of like some monumental,
It felt like treasure. He wrote it, right? Like he just opened up Word, and like it feels that like direct. You know what I mean? And I don't mean it as like a knock in quality. Like I've read, like Timbaland's book or Jay's book, where it's like the budgets are different, right? But when I read AZ's book, it literally felt like he just cracked open Word and just did what he does best, right? You know what I mean? And for anybody watching this, what's it called? That might be like on the fence or curious about the book. The one story that I actually I reread it recently because I hadn't read it in a while. You guys remember the KRS One story he tells in the book? If not, I'll tell it only because it's fresh in my mind. Yeah. So that was, he said when he was like, Sugar Hill was popping, and he had to go do a show and open for KRS One. And he said, you know, he was younger, so he was cocky, showed up late, you know, thought he was the
Oh
man
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
And he was so late that KRS went on ahead of him. You know, he was like, yo, he's like, KRS has hit after hit after hit. He said he had to, you know, by the time he got there, KRS-One like was finishing up his show, like his set. Like the audience like just loved it. And then he said that he was like, KRS-One looked to the side and said, you know, kind of looked at him, knowing that he has to follow that up. And he was just like, you know, told everybody, put your hands together for AZ. He said KRS-One said it kind of sarcastically because he knew he had to follow that that setup.
I do remember that.
Yeah, and AZ said when he goes on stage, crickets, he said halfway through his set, like people were leaving and stuff. And he said that taught him a valuable lesson, you know, like I always like that because AZ, you know, really relaxed dude, but he was like, he gives you one glimpse into like his younger days, his younger mindset, you know, thought his shit don't stink or whatever. And a veteran just basically taught him a lifelong lesson. I love that he put that in the book. So those are some of the things you'll get in that book. I genuinely appreciate that he shared that story.
And it's funny too because, go ahead.
He went into the first time. I mean, he said it now on interviews, but that was the first time that he actually went into why he chose EMI and, you know, didn't link with Nas or Sony and all that. So that was enlightening stuff that he had never said it, you know, before in public.
Not only that, but remember he turned down Def Jam, and he even talked about it in that where he felt like had he not turned out Def Jam, what his trajectory would have been, you know, at that point, because he didn't want to be go with Sony with Nas. He said y'all kind of, you know, same label, but then he also turned down Def Jam, you know, because Def Jam was highly going after him. But it's funny you mentioned the KRS-One story because Nori spoke on a similar experience also with KRS-One. And
he really is the teacher, huh? Like
the teacher, same exact scenario. Like came in late, you know, and once again KRS-One went on before, and then, you know, so it looked like, you know, KRS-One was
like, I've done this before.
You know? But it's funny how we talk about like how we were saying how maybe AZ didn't have gotten too juicy with like a lot of that stuff, his autobiography. But look at his personality; he's a very private person. You know, even to this day, like, you know, you don't hear him talk about like, okay, my children or, you know, past experiences, like, you know, maybe with ex-wife or whatever. Like, he's a very private person. That book kind of went in details. Like, even when he talked about the Cormega fallout with the firm, he kept the brief with like 2 sentences. Like, he didn't say why this happened. Like, you know, there were some issues going on, and Megan was.
He didn't do what Prodigy did. God bless the dead, right? Like, because I know Prodigy pissed off a lot of people with his book. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, he was trying to keep it tasteful, you know, throughout, and you know, and I think that's old school mentality too. You know what I mean, especially from his era, even part of our early, you know, eras, even for because we're all like early '80s baby. That's the same mindset. Like, you're not gonna put all that stuff, all that there. You know, if you beef with somebody, you're not gonna put all that out there. You know, you're gonna keep that private.
You know, it's a classy read for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's an easy read. It's a very quick, like when you look at it, it's I think it is a quick read. So with that said, man, we're laying out the foundation of how AZ came into our radar. You know, what we've, you know, at a high level thought of like his catalog, his music. Well, now it's 2021 and Do or Die 2 finally dropped. This album has been announced for almost 10 years that was supposed to drop.
Just
like,
about
something like that, right?
2010.
I think first mentioned like 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
Initially you talk about Do or Die 2.
So the album now has finally dropped, right? And what's it called? Now let me ask you guys this. When the track list leaked, did that in your mind like convince you, okay, it is definitely dropping this time? Like, was that more of like okay, it's real?
Yeah, because I think especially in the streaming era and everything else now, how things are marketing, if we don't see a track list, you know, then I'm not holding my breath. You know, unless Jay Electronica, okay, track lists and still didn't come out.
That's what a lot of people make fake, and a lot of people also make fake track lists too.
Yeah. But I think we had enough, you know, credible publications, you know, whether it was Hip Hop DX, allhiphop.com, you know, and you know, a couple other sites that were mentioning it with lists. That's okay. This is happening because he was, you know, every couple of years like, oh, I'm about to do it. You know, even when we were at saw him, you know, in concert, he's like, yeah, Do or Die 2 is coming out, you know, next year, and then, you know, 3 years later, you know, so nothing. So
3 years later, 15-year anniversary, Do or Die 1.
Yeah, exactly. So that made it more like a concrete thing, especially when we actually then got a date. Because even last year, you said Do or Die 2 was coming out, and then, you know, nothing happened. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, he also did a quarantine video concert, like the end of 2020, and I mean you had to pay for it. I paid for it, and you can stream it the home console, laptop. But two of those songs were actually on his like quarantine.
Oh, he previewed it.
Yeah, he actually did those songs. So when I heard The Wheel, I had to listen to it again. Like, oh, okay, I had already.
He did
heard
the wheel.
that.
Oh, he did the wheel on that. Okay.
Yeah. So so that's when I knew it was real. Like, okay, because he had already previewed those songs.
What'd you guys think when you saw the track list? When you saw like the features, the album length, the producers? You know what I'm saying? Like me, I know I tend to. It doesn't matter who the artist is. When I see a track list, I see features and production names. It places a preliminary like expectation in my head. So when you're seeing it and you're seeing who's on it, what producers he was able to get, like, how do you feel going into the album?
Producer wise, I thought it was straight. I think the only thing, I guess, obviously we always like that Nas AZ feature, especially if this is supposed to be, the quote unquote sequel. Not seeing that kind of like, but then we know how Nas is too.
Nas, your fault.
Yo, he got hit, and he has Nas's artist on the album. He has Dave East, who's signed to Nas, and it's like, like, get Nas. We want the Nas thing.
So that, and then the only other thing, honestly, I'm not a big Rick Ross fan, but for features such like I seen stuff we did with Nas, even if he's not on topic, he still kind of fits, and as far as
that song's incredible.
So
Rick Ross
that's
showed up on that.
Yeah. So only head scratch to me was more Lil Wayne, more or less, but Ross, everything else, track list as far as features, I thought was on paper very solid, for the most part.
Yeah, and you know what? Like on paper, I scratched my head at like the Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, and T-Pain. And as far as having heard the album a few times now, the only feature that I do not like is the T-Pain one. And what's crazy is T-Pain pulled off a track on the Last Locks album. He actually, I want to say it's the Last Locks album. Like it was like an unconventional collaboration with like an East Coast artist, and he pulled it off. That's the only feature, like as far as like when we pressed play, like, how I interpreted it, that's the only feature that I like. I think AZ's like relaxed style and tracks he picks, like it just, the T-Pain as a contrast is, I think for me, it doesn't work for me. I don't know if do you guys like that track?
Well,
it's a bonus track.
That song just clicked to me. Like I went on a road trip down like Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. So, it's like a 3-hour drive. And that song finally started to make sense. I probably heard the album like 8 or 9 times, spinning it, and it finally clicked. I'm like, I don't know what happened. Maybe I just had to like hear it in a different space, maybe like riding out. But yeah, initially I was like, the T-Pain don't fit, aesthetic wise. But it fits now. Like I like it.
Oh yeah,
like,
it's set in for you. Like you like.
Yeah, I literally like that song now.
You like auto-tune?
Well, I think
SOSA,
for me,
even though AZ's not auto-tune, it's T-Pain.
I think had T-Pain not sang auto-tune, because T-Pain can sing, and a lot of people don't realize that he can actually really sing. It's just that he saw more bread and money, obviously in auto-tune. I think had T-Pain maybe sang regular voice, mine is auto-tune, but still sonically, I still didn't think it fit, because if we look at the track listing, you got the niche, and then goes right into that song there. I think, and it's funny because I was re-listening to the album before we got on air, for this episode, and I was looking at the track list. I feel like if he had moved the track "Time to Answer," moved that down, and had found my niche after the Pete Rock one on "Check Me Out," I felt like if "Time to Answer" was a song next before last, and then the T-Pain came on, I think that would actually flow better sonically.
Like alter the sequencing a little bit.
Yeah, alter the sequencing, because had that happen, I might have like, I don't know about this, but I think it would have flowed more sonically, because you have found my niche, and it sounds more like a more classic gutter and wide sound, and then you go to almost a complete 180.
It's just like an extreme change.
Yeah. To me, it was an extreme change versus had he put the Heatmakers "Time to Answer," I think that could have kind of bridged it, because you had found my niche. Time to Bridge was more commercial. Then you went to that, and then I think that almost like, okay, that's your champagne, that's my victory lap. I'm ending it on a real feel good note, versus how he went from one contrast to another contrast. And I didn't like the sequencing there.
What though? We don't know when he did it, but I mean, I'm guessing it's probably one of the last joints on there. And that's why it's probably pushed to the end. I'd rather have it pushed to the end than in the middle, end of the.
That's why he boned. Yo, and Brandon, to add to what you're saying, I think that's why some artists will give certain tracks of the bonus track treatment to that's their way of, even though it's funny because they'll do that, but we're still hearing it from beginning to end. But I feel like when they do that, what they try to convey is, all right, this is like a little, like an extra. This is like a little bonus. This is a little treat. It's deliberately not in the sequencing. I don't disagree with that logic though, Renzo, because I actually felt when you mentioned the sequencing, I felt that way. Like the intro got Idris Elba, and he said that Idris Elba, really doesn't do intros like that. The only other time he did it was on American Gangster. But when it goes from the intro to Just For You, like, I felt like it's one of his like more like relaxed cuts. I felt like he should have went into something more upbeat to kick the album off. And I like that song. It's called Just For You. But similar to what you're saying, I felt the same way in terms of, if just something was here instead of there. So like, I like that you mentioned that because I had a similar feeling, but with the other end of the album.
And it's funny too, because I thought Just For You was a perfect way to start it after the intro. But even we go through the whole bonus, scenario, I wouldn't like how Found My Niche ended the album. If that was supposed to be the last quote unquote track on the album, because that song kind of ends abrupt. Where I felt like if you had that earlier and go right to Time to Answer, I felt that sonic sequencing wise that would have flowed better, because then you end abrupt with that, and then you go, like I said, a completely different sound, with a T-Pain, what's good. But I mean, but lyrically, lyrically, it's a flawless album, though.
I'll tell you what, and Renz, before you say that, and I'm gonna go one extra. Remember how like we said the album was like announced for like 10 years, and over those years, he gave us like a song a year. They were just like Lucy's or whatever, right? And we're thinking, the album's gonna come out 2011, no, 2012, There was one song from all of those from that batch that I would honestly replace the T-Pain track with. He had a song called Red Magic from like 2012, 2013. I listened to that like this week, and like it belongs on this album. I'm saying, like, if you guys haven't heard it, just play it. It belongs on this album. Like, I could see why he would have left it out, because if he released it like 5 years ago, maybe he feel like, oh, well, you guys heard this already. But even though I think Found My Niche got a little bit of time on it too. Like that's
Found My Niche came out last summer.
Yeah. I think that one.
And that was supposed to be, and that's when he was saying at that time that the album's coming out this year. Cause remember, we were talking about doing the AZ episode last year, thinking it was going to come out in 2020.
Yeah.
At that point, that was supposed to be, that was the lead off single, technically for album prior to, The Wheel,
And I like The Wheel, but I gotta be honest, I like The Wheel better as a single, and I think Jaheim showed up nicely on that. When I hadn't heard of Jaheim track in like forever. I don't know how you guys feel, but
and you're not gonna hear the Jaheim track.
Oh yeah, he messed up.
It's kind of done.
He didn't put those goals first, man.
Looking back though, I think the Do or Die 15 Annie is like it looks and feels random now when you look back at his at his Discogs. I remember when that came out, and I was like super hyped, because why wouldn't we be hyped? Bought it the day it came out, like actually bought it. But yeah, like now looking back, it's like it was a misstep. And I mean, it's good stuff on there. You know what I mean?
There's unreleased. I know there's a couple of like new tracks on there. Yeah. But the thing is, and I don't know if you agree with this, Brandon, you're not going to successfully remake your already classic songs from 95 in 2015 or whatever the year he did in 2010, right?
Nah. I think he was trying to do like the Nas treatment with Illmatic, when, with the like, okay, we're going to do a different version. I'm going to add
from Illmatic to Stillmatic, the remixes. Yeah.
Well, not the remix.
Well,
when you did the anniversary. So remember on the first anniversary edition,
the XX.
He added, a couple of different, not even the XX, even the first one, because he did two re-releases of Illmatic technically. But I'm saying that the first one, what was it, maybe the 10-year one?
Yeah, it's probably like 04.
The initial one.
Yeah.
He added, Shit Is Real, but he added an extra verse to that. He added the remix.
But he kept the beat the same.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, the AZ, he tried to use that same format, and then it didn't have like the same desired results. But
he
at the same
changed
time,
the
now
beats.
the output was
That's what I didn't like when I saw he was changing beats. To, I'm like, dude, I was like, your debut's a classic. Don't change nothing.
For sure.
Don't change nothing.
So wait, so Brandon, you bought it, like even now, like when you sit with it, it's not it.
It's not it, man. I could go back to like the real new songs, But I can't hear like him over it again. And I think Mobb Deep did a similar thing with their Infamous. You know, while P was alive, they did a similar thing. I don't know if y'all bought that album. It was just called The Infamous. But
that was
that was this too, I think. So the first disc was all new music.
Yeah, all new music, and then they did a disc too. Yeah. And when it was like half of it was like old loud stuff that didn't make it, and then half of it was like new reprised stuff, old lyrics on new beats. That just don't go, man.
Yeah.
Well, let me bring it back to the Do or Die 2 vibe. Who had the best feature on this album in your opinion?
Rick Ross.
Yeah. Rose?
That song is beautiful, man. That song made me want to take off my shirt and cook some wings.
like we all kind of have the same views of Ross over the years. Like you're not gonna catch me rock out to a whole Rick Ross album, but when it comes to features, especially with I'll say primarily with New York artists, whether it's AZ, whether it's Nas, and so forth, Ross knows who he's dealing with. He knows his audience. Okay, I'm with these type of 90s spitters. I won't get on that same vibe. I might not rap on topic, but I will at least give you that vibe. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, he's Smith & Wesson in the King Correct. You know, so Ross knows how to adapt. You know what I mean? So, and it's a shame too, because AZ didn't release as a single, but Ross was, you know, they didn't have Ross first or or Ross on the video cut, which I think would have, you know, helped him as far as more marketing for Do or Die 2, but that's definitely a stand-up cut right there. Probably the best feature, you know, on the album.
I gave it to Conway on the Ritual. I just judging verse because even though Rick Ross, you know, he flowed nicely on there, Conway just continued his hard hitting bars on that one, and it worked on that Alchemist track. And you know, he went right after AZ, and I just felt like verse wise, you know, I just felt like he was the standout for me. You know, Griselda's they've been on a ride and they keep ascending. You know, I didn't go into this album wondering who would be the best feature, but I like, for me personally, I gave it to Conway. So
yeah, I can't argue that. I can't argue that at all. I mean, Conway definitely came correct, and it's funny, and this sound reminiscent to like the Alchemist of old too, production wise, not so much all the stripped down without the drum or, you know, whatever. This sound like more like an Alchemist beat from like back in the, you know, early mid 2000s.
And Lil Wayne, I'm gonna say his last two features actually been okay, like with this one and his
feature. His DMX feature was very but on this album, the Do or Die, he didn't go so random that it was like, what the hell are you doing on here? You know what I mean? Like, you know,
and he paid homage too. You know, that's why I like to play homage. You can say we can say what about Lil Wayne, but he's still a student of the culture, and they've always been.
No doubt.
You know?
So right now, what, like, for me, what's it called? Time to Answer is hands down my favorite song right now. You know what I'm saying? So like, what's your guys' favorite track? Is it the Rick Ross joint? Because he's gotten a few mentions tonight.
It's funny you mentioned Time to Answer, because I know how much you don't like Heatmakers, and Heatmakers made that beat.
You know why? Because they ditched that Dipset sound. That's why. They ditched that. That's why when I heard Heatmakers crack music, then the beat drops, I'm like, Jesus Christ. And then he's like on the hook. He's like, time is the answer to all. Take a break, but when it knock, you better answer the door. It won't wait. It don't wait. And that's a concept I'm relating to in real life. And I just love that beat, and I love the concept. And I like, that's just the song. I've had it like just on repeat, like for like at least a day.
I don't know if I have a personal favorite as yet, because the album's so fresh for me, but different. It it's still been standing out to me a lot. Like I'll put that one on repeat a lot. Even Just For You, when that first cut, I thought, like I said, I know you felt different about the sequence, but I felt Just For You was, to me, a good startup of the album, you know, at that point. One thing I'll just mention, because I know Brandon about to jump in. So when I was reading the Hip Hop DX review, you know, and they gave, you know, solid review, but one of the, you know, the negatives they were trying to say, quote unquote, was that they didn't feel like a true sequel. And when I first read it, in theory, it kind of makes sense, but then it doesn't, because what I think about like this, when Do or Die first came out, you got a young, hungry AZ, you scrap it. You know what I mean? So you say, Do or Die, I gotta get this money now, versus now, I got some success under my table. I'm at the table now. I was trying to get to I'm at the table, and now I'm trying to make sure I can still adapt with the times. Because when we look at the features, he's doing artists that are not so much in his comfort zone, quote unquote, like a Lil Wayne, like a Rick Ross, maybe a Conway, but he's dealing with other people that he might not have dealt with maybe 10, 15 years ago, but saying I can still hang with these type of cats and still use a production style that can still sound fresh in this era. You know what I mean? Because we know a lot of people that we might grow up with, idolize, they come out with albums later on like, oh, this sounds dated. It sounds like they're trying to relive this past. And he's not trying to relive the past. He's like, this is an upgrade. This is me so elevated, Bob. So to me, this, how we talked about on with King Disease. To me, this was still a grown man rap. This to me is contemporary hip hop right here. You know what I mean? He's not trying to say, hey, I'm button gats, hey, I'm older. Like he even said, I don't even drink the Henny no more. You might catch me with a glass of wine now. You know what I mean? So you definitely saw evolution of him without, him forcing anything, out of his comfort zone per se.
Yeah. As far as tracks go, I mean, that Ross joint, it stands out. Like if I'm just being non-biased, different. I like that one a lot. Yeah. And I guess, and I'm, anything Pete Rock does, bro, to comment on what you guys were kind of maybe flowing into, like, is it a true sequel? AZ is moving forward and he's nowhere near done. And you could tell, like he like you said, so he's moving in a pace that's not, he's not trying to go backwards. But as long as I see guys like Pete Rock on here, Bank, like
I like the Baby Paul. I didn't realize I was going through the booklets. Baby Paul, I didn't realize was even on Do or Die 1. I'm like, he has great chemistry with AZ.
Absolutely.
He's from the B-Miners, right?
Yep. And relation with Large Professor too. But as long as I see them type of guys on there and Buck Wild, because they're before even Rockwilder and Heatmakers and Czarface and ALC. So if I see those guys, I'm like, the center, the nucleus, the soul of Do or Die is still there. You know what I mean?
So then answer me this. Is Do or Die 2, is it a top 5 AZ album?
I think when all said and done, I like to it's still fresh and new. But I said when all said and done, I think it's definitely a top 5 AZ album. This is definitely, to me, and like I said, I know we differ how we feel about AWOL versus Format, but I think this is his best album since AWOL.
See, I think it's his best album since Format. So same idea, different album. Basically. Like I think it's his best since Format, but his, ironically, and this will be, I think it's his most cohesive since Do or Die 1. Because like if we were gonna do like a 3-hour episode on this, I can point to moments on Pieces of a Man, 9 Lives, Asiatic, where there's 2 or 3 tracks where I'm like, you didn't really need this one. Like these other 12 are good. You didn't need these 2 or 3. Even with Do or Die 2, it's not even like, as much as I said I would put Red Magic in place of the T-Pain joint, the reality is T-Pain's vocals are the only things I don't like about the song. So I think Do or Die 2, and I don't know if you guys agree, I think it's his most cohesive since his debut.
Are we just throwing in all his stuff, or are we saying like just the official albums?
I was just thinking official albums because I know he got like the Memphis sessions and he's got Anthology.
I'm about to say that Memphis sessions is work.
And he got the unofficial, the SOSA, right? The Save Our Streets AZ.
Which he
got the N4L,
Final Call.
Yeah.
I like the Final Call did wind up getting released like a few years later because I remember that's what was supposed to come out instead of AWOL, and then AWOL takes some tracks from there, whatever, something like that. But I got to be honest. I mean, and I'm still letting this album marinate. But when I think about like my favorite 5 AZ albums, I think I got this one in like that number 5 slot. That's how I'm feeling about this album. So because I think he like I said, for me, best project since Format. So this is my favorite indie release from AZ as far as solo albums go.
You guys aren't counting Legendary and Philadelphia Freeway too? Deluxe?
Yo, Legendary. You know what's crazy? AZ in the book, he doesn't, when he lists his discography, he doesn't even list Legendary.
Well, because I think a couple of those albums were released really without his full knowledge. And I think that was the issue. Like they were kind of like almost like unauthorized releases.
I was the indie BS.
I only think like he really even promoted those albums because I think it was that one and maybe one other album that he didn't really
the
really
Gold
promote.
Oil and Drugs.
Exactly. So, but
Do or Die 2 might be in there, bro. I mean, because like it's hard. Like
it's so cohesive,
Yeah, this has to wear off because you know, I still like Pieces of a Man, even though it didn't sell much. And I still like Nine Lives. That was, to me, that was like his comeback. And Format, we already spoke of that album.
So actually, B-Stacks, while you're in that vibe, let me ask you this. All right. Let's say, and you work with kids and stuff, right? Let's say you got to put one of your students onto AZ. All right.
Right.
What first three, and I'm deliberately saying projects here, not just solo albums. Since you were listing off projects right now, and you even mentioned like Memphis Sessions and all that, right? Which three would you be like, yo, this is your audio assignment? Which three AZ projects? And this is not limited to solo albums. Would you assign like, yo, this is the proper introduction to AZ?
Pieces of a Man will be number one. Yeah, the title explains everything, man. It's like like you said, kids, it's development.
Didn't Gil Scott Heron also have like a title or something?
Well,
like
that's a piece of a black man. That's why
he took it from
he's put in parentheses black, but yeah,
it's an Odu of Gil. But yeah, that will be number one for me. To me, that's still his most like knowledge conceptual album out of everything. You know, he always put knowledge in everything.
I love Last Days, bro. To this day, Last Days is my favorite song off that album, man.
Oh, whole thing, man. Obviously I would do Do or Die just because of that hip hop essence vibe. And then I would speed it back up to like something like a Memphis Sessions or even like a Final Call, like something that was a little more just like off radar. When he was just kind of just able to, explode his lyrical ability. I was gonna say decade, but that's kind of like a cheat code because it's like a little greatest hit.
That's one of my. That's why I said project, because that's in my cheat code list. That is in my list. That's why I said projects. And I'll give you and I'll let you finish, and then I'll tell you why I threw that one in there. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I would go with those and like with the asterisk next to decade. You know what I mean? But The Firm to me was just like a bottle, a capsule in time. So I won't.
Yeah, like he wasn't the head of that project. He just worked. He contributed, but it's not his. Yeah.
Right.
What about you, Renzo?
Well, I kept it strictly what made. I know you said project, but I still kept it strictly with official albums per se. Right. But first and foremost, I think you still guys have to start with Do or Die. I think that's a given. This is the essence where he originated, where he started from. From there, I went with Asiatic. I think, Nine Lives was his kind of his quote unquote comeback, but I think Asiatic was kind of more like, him being fully comfortable with what he's doing now with his craft fully. I consider Asiatic classic. Even if they're trying to say, oh, maybe this shouldn't be here, I still think that flow. I don't really see, even the track that you might not like, I don't really see a quote unquote filler track on Asiatic. You know what I mean?
Great album.
And then after that, I had AWOL, because AWOL, even though if you say you might have a mishap, I think as far as range and sound, he gave you a little bit of everything on AWOL. He gave you the introspective tracks. He gave you a little bit more of the club stuff. He gave you more of the ladies feel.
The club stuff was the stuff I didn't like, but I love like City of God. I love that joint. I love Can't Stop, Won't Stop. Oh man.
Yeah.
What club record was on there?
And and I don't know if I'm mixing that one up with Format, but he's got oh my God!
I feel like AWOL's a gutter street type.
Yeah,
you know what it is. And I might be mixing it up with Format.
If I would say
I think Format, bro. I think that was.
Oh, you know what? The joint's still alive. The joint's still alive. When I heard that beat, that was something that I'm not used to hearing.
That didn't bother me, because I think he rocked it well. I know what you're saying, because when I was listening to the other day, I'm like, does it really fit? But then I said, it kind of so fits. But I know what you're talking about. But I felt a dope track then, and I still feel a dope track, and I don't really think it took away from the overall feel, because even I think it was on allhiphop.com before he even came out. He even said, hey, at that time, he might just didn't say that for promotional purposes, but at that time, he was like, oh, listen, this might be my best work, even over Do or Die. And the guy said, this is bold statements, I know, but like, this is how I'm feeling right now. And I think a lot of it had to do, because that was his first independent album too. Versus
I personally don't believe rappers when they do that.
But I haven't heard him say anything like that since the AWOL neither. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm also judging it. Like other albums that came out after that, he didn't say the same, like, oh, I have now topped this. You know what I mean?
Did y'all? I didn't hear y'all mention this yet, but did y'all would y'all put Undeniable in there anywhere?
I have Undeniable pretty low in my rankings, to be honest.
But it's a slower pace. I don't, you know what I mean? And that's why I kind of
couple club tracks on there. Ray don't like.
Yeah, it's a vibe that AZ, when you kind of go throughout his career, there's a certain vibe that he's a master at, and a certain vibe that just, I don't know if he just needs a different person in his corner to really pull it off. Like he could pull off a Hey AZ, but you know, when you're doing he also had one on the format. It had that Mano beat, like like that hustle hard, that beat. And those are ones where they feel forced. So even though he may not sound like bad on the beat because he simply knows how to ride a beat, it's a track where it's just like, I was like, I don't think this is the best way for AZ to present himself. But yeah, like Undeniable has some songs I like. My favorite joint on there was like something Knots produced, but I got that pretty low. Like if I was like ranking like my AZ albums, I like that. Like I'm not gonna hand a young person that project and say start here. I don't think it would.
So it's deniable. Deniable for you.
There's some deniability there, man. You know what I'm saying? Like yo, look, much like Renzo, I go Do or Die 1. I also would go Asiatic because for me, Asiatic actually feels like what his sophomore album expectation wise and quality wise. And I like Pieces of a Man. I like, if I'm ranking my albums, I think I got it like Do or Die, Asiatic, and then Pieces of a Man. I feel like Asiatic was like a proper, not sequel, but like would have been the proper sophomore album. And I think at the time that album came out, it was very celebrated, more so than Pieces of a Man and 9 Lives. Like it was like, yo, this is like a return to form, you know. It was getting that kind of, you know.
And so, I mean, that was on Motown, and you know, even I think New Tribe or had released Pieces of a Man, and literally after the album came out, he left the label. So it didn't even have the proper. Remember, Hey AZ didn't even make the album, and that was supposed to be the lead off single.
It's on the compilation though. It's on Decade compilation.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And the video is always great with my girl from SWV, baby. I love you.
Yo, and Asiatic, I think a lot of people forget like the Essence is Grammy nominated. AZ is a Grammy nominated rapper.
So, he always, AZ was always like, and he's a survivor, but he always was a victim of the labels, man.
Labels and just timing.
Timing, bad deals, and I mean, but he's made it. I mean, like who else is like in the hip hop scene, like hit that many bricks and still been able to like ride their career,
stay relevant, and you know everything. Because you know, I think about Pieces of a Man, I'm like 98, and I know how much we talk about 98, but it's like it's so saturated, you almost forget that he came out in 98. Because we're talking about Capital Punishment, we're talking about Darkest Hell is Hot, we're talking about Volume 2, we're talking about Exhibits 40 Days and 40 Nights, and it's like, oh shit, AZ also had his
and I think that one might have
one of his best albums too.
And I think that album, I have that as a top tier AZ album for sure. And I think that album might have been slated for 97. And what's crazy is Hey AZ had the same sample as an even bigger song in 97 that used that same sample, Honey. Yeah. So I wonder if that messed him up, because if that doesn't come out and he leads off with that, does that change the conversation about that album a little bit? You know what I mean? But yeah, no, like I said, Do or Die 1, Asiatic, and I deliberately picked Decade compilation for the same reason. Somebody years ago asked me about Gangstar. I said start with Full Clip because it gives you like the best of everything, especially in AZ's case, the decade is 94 to 04. Like his prime material is in that decade. And what I like about it, it's not just his albums, it's features. You know what I mean? So that's why I would throw that on there. So what's it called? So let me ask you guys this. Does AZ have, in your opinion, one classic album or more than one classic album?
I think I looked at AZ as a classic, regardless, you know. And I look at Do or Die as a sort of as a classic. I feel like he has 2. Somebody could argue 3, but I think anything beyond 2, I think you can find hold. But I those are the 2 I look at as classics, you know, in this catalog personally.
One for me. Like I favor Asiatic a lot, but when we're talking about the grand scheme of hip hop, it's a lot. Like it's a lot of room. Like it's a lot of room, and there ain't a lot of room. Y'all get what I'm saying? So he only got one, man. It's hard to fit. Everybody can't make it into the room. You know what I mean? So
I got him at 1 as well. Like I would say that I think he given where hip hop was, where he was, and the resources he had, everything aligned for him on that album in a way where, I mean, it's a no skip album. No skip. Doubt. There isn't a moment where, this one could have been left off. No, like, you know, even like the remix to Sugar Hill, you know, again, it's not better than the original. The original's a gold selling record, but it was still like a nice bonus track. I would say
Oh Happy Jackie.
Oh Happy Jackie. Yeah.
More murder, more homicide.
Yeah. I mean, I would say he has one. There's plenty of artists who went on to be bigger than him that don't have one. So that's what I'm saying. It's still saying something. So then I'll end off. Oh, actually, there's two things. One, I didn't ask you guys if you were rating the Do or Die 2, like Source mics 1 to 5 right now. Where is it for you?
I get a solid 4.
Yeah, I got
for Mike. Well. Like I said, the T-Pain, like I said, kind of grows that, but I can't, you know what I mean? I would give a solid 4. You know, Mike's off, you know, at least off the lists I have off the back here. I mean, it could possibly go to 4.5, but it's definitely a solid 4, you know, at the minimum.
Yeah, I think I would say 4.5 is like maybe pushing it.
Yeah, that's to say,
but definitely a 4.
Yeah,
definitely a 4.
I got it at that. He delivered. I got it at a 4.
He delivered, yeah.
I would say, and you know what? And I'll transition to the very last thing here. What's left for AZ to do? He's been in it, you know, since '95. He just dropped another, you know, like what is left for AZ to do?
Continues victory lap. It's funny because initially when he first announced Do or Die 2 about 10 years ago, he initially said, "This is going to be my last album. I'm done after this. You know, I'm going to, you know, try to develop other artists or whatever." Right before his album came out, he said, "Hey, I'm in a different place now. I think I could do at least 3 or 4 more albums before I say all said and done." So to me, it's, you know, mess with some of the younger, whether it's with Zelda. And one thing that stood out to me, I was re-listening to 9 Lives, and we talk about Benny the Butcher. His label's Black Soprano Family. AZ side group was the Black Sopranos. So I'm almost looking like, yo, why did you have full circle moment with Benny, you know, kind of bridge that gap generational, whether it's a song or even a mini EP, whether it's like 5-7 tracks or whatever, you know, I mean, this title of the Black Sopranos, them two, us finally getting the Nas AZ album that we've been waiting for since forever, you know. And he already even said in that interview, I can't remember what site it was from, but he wanted to pretty much end it with Do or Die 3. I think that's his final offering at that point. So in between all that, between Ninth Wonder wanting to do, you know, a 7-song EP, I think there's room for him to do. Well,
no, Soul Council, yes. Ninth Wonder, no.
I'll say Soul Council. Give me Soul Council. If we can get a Nas AZ album, give me Soul Council and Hit Boy mixture.
If we get the Nas AZ, I don't want one production. I want
I'm saying.
The
give me Soul
variation.
Council, give me a little Hit Man. You know what I mean? Hit Boy.
I have a wild theory that I think is absolute also BS. King's Disease 2 dropped this year. Do or Die 2 dropped this year. Could it be symbolism? Could we be working our way to a Nas and AZ? Or no?
It would be nice.
No, it would be nice. It's the biggest reach. I tweeted it, and I included AZ and Nas in the tweet, and I think mass appeal. That's just my way of saying, yo, you have 2 rappers who can still get it done. You're letting this opportunity slip, and there's no reason for it to slip. They're in good standing. They still get along. There's no reason. They were even on a song together last year.
And good thing you mentioned that, because that's the other reason why I think Do or Die 2 was such perfect timing, because people who didn't know AZ, especially the younger generation, got reintroduced to AZ because of King Disease 1. You know what I mean? Circle. Which then it kind of gave him the momentum to say, you know what, let me finally put this album out. You know, because he even said in an interview that most of the tracks he worked on were within the last, 12 months, outside of maybe like 2. I think T-Pain track was an older track, and then I was find my niche was an older track, but everything else was pretty much within the last year.
Yes, I'll wrap real quick. I don't think we're gonna see a Nas AZ album, but I think we could at least have a tour where they could kind of get creative, right? And they could do 5 songs from Do or Die, 5 songs from Illmatic. They got enough work where it would interchange in a live concept-based form. Mega's coming out with his sequel, so maybe you can even include some firm fiasco, pun intended. And then other than that, man, just like he's like, I follow him on Instagram. I follow him all the time, and he just seems like he's not done. Like he's warming up again for another lap. So like just continue consistency, man. He's a keystone in hip hop.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to see him now that Do or Die 2's out. I want to see him, if he's really, really not done, challenge himself with other producers to kind of give himself. The newer generation deserves to know his talent. And there's a lot of artists, both mainstream and indie, who were able to evolve their sound, you know, even if it took them a while to get there. And I think it's his turn. And this is not a knock against production on Do or Die 2, because his core fan base is going to be satisfied. But it's like, AZ, your pen is still in the fountain of youth. Let's get you with some of the other producers that, you know, even if I don't want Ninth, there's other producers on Ninth's level that, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a bunch, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. He did the track with Griselda, with West Side Gun on the newest West Side, the side B or something like that.
The side B. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that was a track. And that was also a dope album. I'm not going to front those, the part A, part B. That's probably the best of West Side to me personally, since Pray for Paris, off topic, but so that's like where I'm at. And I mean, other than that, Do or Die 2, dope album, one of this year's favorite for me personally. Let us know, do you guys have a different like top 3? Are there other albums? Are there other projects, you know, that, you know, maybe we didn't talk about that y'all like from AZ? Let us know in the comments section. And other than that, that's it. It's a wrap. I don't know if you guys got anything else to add there. And don't forget, Eminem, when he first came out, was emulating AZ. They say AZ and Nas, but I hear AZ on Infinite, it was AZ more than anybody. Infinite, so remember that. Definitely AZ.
It goes back to full circle. In the beginning of this episode, we said the elite know AZ. Eminem, like as he was maturing, AZ was an influence there. So with that said, I don't know if y'all got anything.
It's still or die.
That's it, man. Rather unique.
All right. So as always, look for us on social media, Tres Leches Radio at everything. Stream us, Amazon Music, Apple Music, and Spotify. All right.
Word.
Peace.
Peace. Tres Row, ho.